Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the work session. Today is Monday, November 10th, 2025. It's a little after 1, it's 1:04 p.m. approximately, and I'm Mayor Eric Enriquez. We'll start with a moment of silence for the brave men and women of the United States and the armed forces as they protect our interests around the globe, and also for our police and fire that keep our city safe 24/7, 365. And also wanted to, before, pay tribute to our veterans, as tomorrow is Veterans Day, and thank them for their dedication, their courage, and their sacrifice. And with that, great. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next we have Jobs of the Week with Sarah Rainey.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, my name is Sarah Rainey. I'm the one-stop coordinator for the Southwest region of America's Job Centers, New Mexico. For Jobs of the Week this week, we have a buyer one for the city of Las Cruces for $23.79 an hour. It is a continuous posting at this time. We also have a senior office assistant for the city that's starting at $16.15 an hour and closes on the 17th. We have a student program coordinator at NMSU starting at $17.85 an hour, and it closes very soon, actually, on the 12th. A home care assistant for Angel Wings Coordinated Care, LLC, for $12 an hour, closing later on this month on the 28th. A full-time universal banker one for Citizens Bank of Las Cruces for $14 an hour, closing on the 22nd. And then they also have a part-time universal banker closing on the 27th as well. And then the pay is depending on experience on that one. As always, we have our Community Hope job readiness event coming up this week, actually Wednesday. We have that this week, and the other events that we have coming up are all in office. So if you are looking for a job, if you want part-time, full-time, seasonal, please come in and talk to us. We've got a lot of good resources, and a lot of employers are looking right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Pets of the Week with Carol.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Nilsson, Digital Content Specialist with the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. This week, our dog of the week is Lemon Meringue, 91342. Even though I've spent a bit more time here at the shelter, I've turned out to be a fairly balanced pup. I love heading to the play yard where I can stretch my legs and explore the world around me. Treats are my motivation. I'm more than happy to work on my sit command. I respond to recall commands, so getting me to come back when called, working on it, but it's getting easier, especially if there's a yummy treat waiting for me. If you're looking for a playful companion who comes with a big heart, and our cat of the week is Cutie Pie, 98691. I'm a 6-year-old cat, a bit older than some of the younger felines around the shelter. I'm still full of life and ready to enjoy every moment. I absolutely thrive on affection. My favorite thing in the world, neck scratches. I'm also quite the storyteller, so get ready for some charming meows and purrs as I keep you company while you show me affection. I would do best in a one-cat household where I can soak up all the love and attention. If you're looking for a gentle friend who will keep you company and fill your days with conversation and love, I'm your kitty. And as always, we like to highlight our long-term residents to encourage the community to come adopt when they're looking to adopt animals, because the longer animals stay in the shelter, it's harder for them to thrive. Cosette has been with us now 307 days. Dexter, 292. Finn, 282, and Hulu, 280 days. All really good options. They're really fun dogs, but it does get harder for them, so please, please, please come help them out. And this coming weekend, we will be at Petco from 9 to noon. So come on out, grab your supplies, say hello to our adoptables, and bring someone who's looking to adopt. And as always, for more information, visit us at ascmv.org or follow us on social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next, we'll move to the agenda items 4.1, 2026 state and federal legislative priorities. I have Christine Rivera. Oh. 1 second, I have to read the closed meeting statement first. Where is that one go? So, City of Las Cruces City Council met in a closed session along with the board members from the County Commission at 11:04 a.m. on November 10th, 2025. The following were attendance: Councilor McClure, Councilor Graham, Councilor Coran, Mayor Pro Tem Bencomo, Mayor, Councilor Flores. City Manager was on Teams, Ikani Tamopeyao, City Attorney Brad, City Clerk Christine Rivera, also City Attorney Henry Becker. From the county, Chris Salgio Hernandez, Manny Sanchez, Shannon Reynolds, Gloria Gameros, also staff Deborah Weir, Carrie Neal, Stephen Lopez, and outside counsel Chris DiFilippo. The items that were discussed: threatened or pending litigation in the matter of Memorial Medical Center Nocha breach sent on August 29, 2024. The meeting adjourned at 12:58 p.m. Now we can move to agenda 4.1. State and federal legislative priorities. City Clerk Christine Rivera.
Mayor, City Council, good afternoon. I am Christine Rivera, your City Clerk. And today we have the state and federal legislative priorities for 2026. First, I would like to extend my appreciation to all the departments that met with myself, Cynthia Alamillo, and Gabby Prats to review and discuss their respective priorities. Based on those discussions, we have developed a list of projects and initiatives that we believe align well with our legislative delegation. Today's presentation will consist of multiple parts. To begin, I will turn it over to Larry Horan, who will provide an update on the special session in October and share insights onto what to expect during the upcoming 30-day regular session.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, Larry Horan, state lobbyist for the City of Las Cruces. It's always good to be in front of you as we head into another regular legislative session. Breaking news is we're in our second special session of the legislature today as of about 1 p.m. They called themselves back into special session again, so I'll go over both special sessions and what they're dealing with. The first special session was first in October 5th and 6th. They passed 5 total pieces of legislation, primarily to deal with the changes at the federal level that came with the budget resolution passed by Congress and signed by President Trump, dealing with general appropriations to bolster against future cuts to the Medicaid program. They put money in to help people pay premiums under the Affordable Care Act if those tax subsidies are not extended. They put more money into the SNAP program benefits, and then they made some changes to the criminal competency law that they passed last year to allow for Metro Court judges, which only applies in the city of Albuquerque to also apply to utilize the criminal competency challenges that they passed in the last session. And then also they changed rules to immunization based on the changes that came from the U.S. Department of Health. We're heading into the 2026 session, and I'll remind you, short sessions come every 2 years, 30-day sessions. 2026 will be a 30-day session, so the subject matter that the legislators can consider is limited to revenue matters, appropriations, messages from the governor, and also bills that have been previously vetoed in another session. What we're seeing this year, and we're already starting to see the signs of it, is the budget is starting to constrict and revenue is starting to constrict at the state of New Mexico. Price of oil is down, production is still strong, but as anticipated, it's starting to peak, the production and the revenue we're getting from the oil. And so we'll start to see that in the budget, and we also may see it as it relates to funding that's available for capital outlay and other projects from the legislators. Although it's not capital outlay is based upon severance tax revenue, they also have a permanent fund they can issue bonds related to it. The past several years, all of the capital outlay for the state has been, they've used excess general fund cash. So this year, you're already seeing signals from the legislators, particularly the Finance and Appropriations Committee, that they think the budget's gonna start slowing down. So many of the legislators who are in now have not experienced any kind of a downturn or shortfall. We're not at a point where it's considered a downturn. It's just a slowing of growth. So what does that mean? The GROW funds, which also had been known as House Bill 2 junior money, they were on a 2-year cycle in 2024. So if they were going to extend them, this would be the session that they probably would extend them. Because of the slowed growth, there's probably not going to be excess general fund revenue, or they're going to have to spend it in other places, so we're not likely to see GROW funds. What are we going to see? In the special session in October, there was discussion going into the special session about passage of the medical compacts. There's 11 compacts that were introduced in the last 60-day session that will help make it easier for healthcare providers in New Mexico or out of the state to actually practice in New Mexico. We only participate in 1 or 2 now. There's 11 that they're looking to, that they were introduced, that we were looking to join. They did not pass in the 60-day session. They weren't quite ready, meaning legislative leadership and the governor's office weren't ready to come to a resolution on how to deal with the compacts during the special session. But legislative leadership did make a commitment that they will address and hear about the medical compacts in the first half of this coming 30-day session. And also, there's significant movement, discussion, and I would say anxiety on both sides as it relates to the Medical Malpractice Act. Malpractice Act was changed in 2021. I think New Mexico came out with a report last year talking about needed changes to the Medical Malpractice Act. So you have providers, hospitals on one side of the issue, trial lawyers and patient advocates on the other side. This is another area where we'll see something in the 30-day session. Not sure yet whether or not a compromise will be reached at that point, but the momentum is building. I would also say emotions are getting hot as it relates to the Medical Malpractice Act, and so we're starting to see this issue come to a boiling point, which is a lot of times what it takes to make a change in a significant law like the Medical Malpractice Act. So we'll see that in the coming 30-day session. What else? Further possible mitigation of federal cuts as it relates to Medicaid and SNAP. Today, the special session is focused solely on SNAP benefits. The governor was able to fund 10 days of SNAP benefits that were scheduled to stop at the beginning of November because of the federal shutdown. They were able to do that with emergency funds that they had available, which was to the tune of $30 million. That would have expired. Today would be the last day they would be able to fund SNAP benefits. So they called themselves into special session to appropriate up to $300 million from reserves that live in the healthcare authority's budget to fully fund SNAP benefits through November if the shutdown does not end. If the shutdown ends, which we're seeing signals that it's close to ending, that money, that $300 million, then will go into the Medicaid trust fund that they created last year. Again, tax credits for the health insurance exchange. The big issue at the federal level is whether or not those tax credits are going to be extended into next year for people buying insurance on the health insurance exchange. If that does not happen, then the legislature has it called the Healthcare Affordability Fund that can help people pay for their premiums. So we'll see issues again related to that. Tax package. Last year, the tax package was vetoed by the governor. It had just a couple of, it was not, I wouldn't say it was a sweeping tax package. It had a few things to the tune of about $150 million of tax changes. This year, because of what's happening with the price of oil and the constriction on the budget, there's probably not capacity for them to pass it, have a tax package. So we don't know yet. They've had discussions at the Revenue Stabilization Committee, which is the interim committee that deals with tax issues. Senator Kerry Hamblin is chair of that committee this year and also chair of the tax committee in the Senate. They're considering potential tax package, but as we get closer, it's looking less and less like we're going to have one. One issue that will come up as it relates to dealing with medical services and going back to that Think New Mexico report, one of the recommendations in the Think New Mexico report was to eliminate the gross receipts tax on medical providers. What happens when the state does that? We saw it when they eliminated gross receipts tax on food. It would have happened on medical provider gross receipts tax elimination. If they eliminate the entire gross receipts tax, they take the state portion and they also eliminate the local portion. And so that has a significant fiscal impact on cities. And so when the Municipal League took a position on that legislation last year, it was to oppose the legislation because of how it would have impacted cities. So we had, I made a presentation along with Allison Nichols from the Municipal League to the Revenue Stabilization Committee last week. What was the ask? The ask was generally going forward to protect local revenues, if you're going to do something like take away the gross receipts tax on medical gross receipts, take away the state's portion if the state chooses to enact that because that's their revenue, and leave the local portion alone because cities and counties have a fewer revenue sources in the state of New Mexico. And so the request would be going forward as their considered tax policy, leave the cities alone. Don't hold us harmless, don't make hold harmless payments. Just leave the tax in place as it relates to local governments. And so I'll stand for any questions now, or if you think it's appropriate later, if there's anything you would like me to cover about what has happened or what's coming in the next 60-day session. And then it is the governor's last regular session, although we've had 2 special sessions this year, so even after the session ends in February, she could call the legislators back in to deal with some of these kind of big ticket issues.
All right, thank you, Larry. We'll wait for questions at the end. Okay, questions at the end.
Mayor and Council, my name is Cynthia Lamillo, Capital Improvements Program Manager. So as we talk about the upcoming legislative priorities, we want to talk about the Capital Improvements Program as it is the starting point for the selection of the projects. The Capital Improvements Program that goes by CIP is a planning tool that's required by the city charter, and it's an annual process. So I also want to take a moment to thank all of the departments and staff who has been working with CIP as our process does take a full year from starting to adoption. The program generates what we call a CIP document, which is a document that we use to help communicate all of the funding infrastructure needs that the city has. It spans 6 years. The first year includes all of the budgeted infrastructure project, which means our projects that have some sort of funding associated to it. And then the outer years, which is years 2 to 6, are all of our funding needs, which are unfunded infrastructure needs, which is what we need to use as a tool to help us find for funding alternatives. As I mentioned, the CIP document is adopted by City Council, and as our projects move forward and progress, we have to bring them to City Council for adoption. Also, if there's an additional funding source that we need to include into each of our projects. After the document is approved by Council in May, we then work with the state to submit the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan that it's called ICIP. This is another planning tool that's used to communicate the funding needs of our municipality. As we get closer to the legislation, the State Department, specifically the Department of Finance and Administration, will communicate our project information to the legislature. So that will be additional information and details that they can review and oversee as they work with communities in identifying projects. So CIP, while it's quite lengthy, it does provide a very strong planning tool for us to make sure that we have a good identification of the projects that we need to fund and any associated funding sources. Then I will pass it on back to Christine Rivera.
Okay, Christine Rivera, City Clerk again. So since this is a 30-day session, policy items will be limited, but the New Mexico Municipal League is bringing forward the following items for consideration. So the first one is the creation of a New Mexico Land Banking for Property, Community, and Economic Revitalization Act. What this is it will create a working group to draft legislation related to a funding source for vacant and blighted properties in communities. Next is the request water and wastewater funding. This request is for an appropriation to the Water Project Fund to meet the needs of vetted project applications due to increased critical needs of municipal water infrastructure. Municipal water systems service approximately 70% of the state's population, but aging infrastructure and high maintenance costs are significant challenges for municipalities. Next is the streamlined approval of Water Project Fund projects. Legislative authorization requirements can delay shovel-ready water projects by several months, as funds cannot be dispersed until after the session and bill signing. This requirement would allow the New Mexico Finance Authority to directly approve eligible projects, speed up funding, improve project outcomes, and maintain oversight through the NMFA vetting process. And the last one is the law enforcement recruitment and retention. New Mexico faces a pressing need to recruit and retain qualified law enforcement personnel. Many municipalities in the state report significant staffing shortages and challenges in recruitment efforts. The League staff is working with the New Mexico Chiefs of Police Association and other stakeholders on an evaluation of barriers to recruitment and retention and potential solutions, including legislative recommendation. So now we're going to go into the state priority projects. As previously noted, we met with the departments to identify priorities that align with the city's CIP program. We also met with legislators, and each one of them identified items from our list that they consider priorities for the upcoming legislative session. First is affordable housing. The city currently has a need for approximately 5,600 rental units. This funding will support the completion of Paseos Verdes and reduce the city's loan contribution for Phase 2 of Peachtree. Together, these projects will add a total of 386 rental units to the community, and we're asking this year for $6 million. Next is legacy parks. This includes parks that are more than 30 years old. Given the unfortunate events that occurred earlier this year, our focus will be on Young Park. The master plan is currently in the public comment phase. Proposed improvements include the renovation of existing features and the construction of new amenities to modernize facilities, enhance efficiency, and improve accessibility. Additional enhancements will include increased shade, updated systems, and overall beautification and revitalization of the park. And we are asking for $6 million for this project. Next is the East Mesa Public Recreational Complex. Part of the 2022 GEO bond, the city has completed design and construction of Phase 1 to include 2 ball fields with lighting, 2 multi-use fields with lighting, grading park with turf, walkways, landscaping, bathrooms, 8 pickleball courts with bleachers, ADA parking, small parking area, and water fountains. Currently under construction are basketball courts with lighting, walkways, landscaping, bathrooms west of Camino and Coyote, ADA parking, the art garden, parking lot improvements, and water fountains. Future funding would construct 8 sand volleyball courts with lights, a food truck court, umpire building, and spectator improvements around the ball fields. And for this project, we are requesting $3 million. Klein Park improvements. Funding to date has allowed us to complete several significant improvements, including re-roofing, stucco repairs, and new paint at the amphitheater, installation of a new shade structure over the play area, new site furnishings, an art mural, electrical upgrades, perimeter wall repairs, walkway enhancements, and resurfacing of the basketball court. This year, we are requesting funding that may go towards the Camino Real Garden, the multi-use plaza, the grand steps, and additional shade structures, including a gazebo. And this request is for $500,000. Fire station improvements. We are all aware of the renovations needed at our fire stations to support the wellness and safety of our firefighters. This request focuses on enhancing station security through the installation of fencing, which will help reduce liability for the city while ensuring a safe and efficient environment for both firefighters and the community they serve. This project is $500,000. Regional driving track. The Las Cruces Police Department currently utilizes the driving track in Deming for its academy training. Unfortunately, this facility is expected to close in the near future. The driving track is a required component of the academy, and without access to one, we will be unable to conduct our own training program. This would necessitate sending cadets to academies in northern New Mexico, resulting in a loss of local oversight and control of training standards. To address this need, the city will pursue a joint effort with the county to develop a new driving track facility. The design has been complete, so we're asking $1.5 million to start construction. Real-time crime center bandwidth upgrades. The Las Cruces Police Department currently utilizes, the Real-Time Crime Center became operational this year thanks to funding previously received from various sources. As some of you have seen firsthand, it serves as a powerful tool that enables the Las Cruces Police Department to take a more proactive approach in responding to critical incidents throughout the city. However, we currently lack the capacity to fully support our expanding technology needs. And so we're asking for $3 million for this project. Brannigan Library renovation and expansion. During the work session on October 27th, we had the opportunity to review the impressive master plan for this project. Phase 1 will focus on essential repairs and improvements, including upgrades to counters, windows, lighting, flooring, restrooms, the service desk seating areas, security systems, sound systems, infrastructure stabilization, foundation, roof, walls, sidewalks, abatement, ADA compliance, and the amphitheater. This phase will also include the expansion of the Brannigan Library through the construction of the atrium lobby addition. Additionally, Phase 1 allocates funding for temporary rental space to accommodate library staff and services throughout the construction period. So this is a big one. This is for $10 million. East Side Center purchase and renovations. The East Side Center provided approximately 18,000 congregate meals and 120,000 home-delivered meals in FY25. Located in the Mesquite Historic Neighborhood at the heart of downtown Las Cruces, the center serves as a vital hub for seniors who have lived in the neighborhood for decades, offering both access to meals and a sense of community. Currently operating on a leased property, we are seeking funding to purchase and renovate the facility. Planned improvements include upgrades to restrooms, kitchen, HVAC, parking areas, drainage, overall structure, dining rooms, program and storage spaces, flooring, windows and doors, security and safety systems, roof, and foundation. And so we are requesting $775,000 for this project. Wastewater septic systems. The New Mexico Environment Department adopted a new liquid waste disposal regulation that became effective September 1st, 2005, that revised the rules governing lot sizes. The City of Las Cruces Septic Tank Identification and Prioritization Plan, written by Camp Dresser McKee, identified 1,880 parcels located within the city limits that are on septic tank systems and not served by the city's wastewater collection and treatment system. Removal of septic tanks within the city limits aids in groundwater protection by eliminating the possible contamination of groundwater by household wastes. High-density residential subdivisions utilizing septic tank systems such as these could result in nitrate concentration in local aquifers that exceed the drinking water standard. Completion of the projects will aid in protecting the aquifer from pollution and help ensure the reliability of the city's drinking water supply. And this project is $1 million. The last project we have before you is the Mesa Grande Drive Extension. This project will construct a north-south principal arterial roadway, providing a new connection between US Route 70 and Interstates 25 and 10. The project includes new east-west connections at Northwest Drive, Gallejitas Boulevard, Sedona Hills Parkway, Sonora Springs Boulevard, Sonoma Springs Avenue, and Loman Avenue. The proposed roadway will consist of a 4-lane boulevard approximately 5.7 miles in length and will include sidewalks, protected bike lanes, accommodation for high-frequency transit service, and a requirement to build 40% attainable housing. We received a grant this year for $61 million, and the grant match is $15 million, and that's what we're asking for. So the total of all those projects that I just presented to you comes out to approximately $47.3 million. So now I'll move on to the nonprofits. The kitchens at Community of Hope, a joint effort with Casa de Peregrinos. This project will develop a 17,000 square foot shared facility to serve as a new headquarters for El Cadito Soup Kitchen and to establish a community kitchen in the city of Las Cruces in Joniana County. The facility will include space for the soup kitchen, a licensed commercial kitchen available for rent by local food producers, a training facility, and an emergency kitchen to support community needs. Casa de Peregrinos alone has served almost 40,000 clients in 2025 and distributed over 7 million pounds of food. Community of Hope Master Plan implementation. The master plan includes roadway and pedestrian improvements along Amador Avenue and Valley Drive. Planned enhancements include the installation of 2 Hawk signal systems, addition of a bus and turning lane, construction of a 3rd emergency exit driveway for Community of Hope, trail improvement or development, parking lot renovations, and new fencing. And so this one is for $2 million. So now I'm going to turn it over to John and Kyriakis, who are going to go over the federal priorities for you.
Christine, thank you for the introduction. I'm John O'Donnell, Managing Partner of MMO Partners in Washington, and with me is Kyriakis Pagonis. Kyriakis, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, John. Kyriakos Pagonis with MMO Partners, Vice President here at the firm.
So to start off, I asked Kyriakis if he would update us on what has, excuse me, taken place over the weekend and today with the federal shutdown, because it does have some bearing on the FY26 appropriations process.
Thanks, John. Mayor and Council, nice to see you today. As John mentioned, there appears to be an agreement on the Senate side. As of last night, they took a vote to proceed to a bill that would extend 9 appropriations bills through January 30th of 2026, and then include 3 spending bills, the Ag Ledge Branch and Military Construction, and fund those through the end of the fiscal year. So there would be a short-term CR for 9 of the 12 bills, and then the Ag Ledge Branch and Milcon bills would be funded through the rest of the year. The deal, it appears, would include back pay for federal workers that have been working or furloughed. It would revise some of the firing/layoffs that have happened during the shutdown. And there appears to be some commitment to have a vote on the Senate side on extending some of the Affordable Care Act credits. It's unclear at this point whether or not the House will pass it, although it does seem to lean in that direction, but we'll see once the Senate takes action. And we expect that the Senate could move as quickly as tonight to pass it, and then as members on the House side get back to town later this week, we probably looking at maybe a midweek passage on the House side. So we would have some movement on appropriations bills. The Ag bill, I will say, does include earmarks that House members and senators have included. So there is some positive movement on including projects as well as the Milcon and Ledge Branch, although the Ledge Branch doesn't have any earmarks. But that's where we are currently. We're certainly watching this, and we'll make sure that the city gets an update as soon as we hear it. John?
Thanks, Kyriakis. So where we are with the FY 26 appropriations, as Kyriakis said, they have a continuing resolution which will take us to the end of January. And they will extend spending for programs under the CR that are not covered by this three subcommittee bill. So there is a possibility that we'll still see earmarks in the FY 26 appropriations bill. Both House Appropriations and Senate Appropriations committees members said last week that they really wanted to try and finish an FY 26 bill and not go to a continuing resolution. That means if they do this, earmarks, as I said, will be included. The 26 earmarks will be included. So my only note related to that about looking forward is that this conversation with members of the council and the mayor today is a good starting point to determine what exactly are going to be the city's top priority requests in earmarks for FY 27. We have, in addition to the appropriations bill for next year, we also have some other important authorizing legislation, which includes reauthorization of the surface transportation legislation. That's highways and transit and highway safety. And by the way, the city did submit comments to the House and Senate appropriations, or I'm sorry, authorizing committees that handle that legislation with some recommendations that we shared with them from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, and Metropolitan Planning Organizations. They called it the LOT proposal, L-O-T, Local Organizations Transportation. So that was done. That also included some transit legislation which the city commented on too. The other bill is the Road to Housing Act, which the city has commented on to the congressional delegation. The Road to Housing Act is a bipartisan piece of legislation in the Senate by Senator from South Carolina and Massachusetts. It was included in the Defense Authorization Bill for 2026. So it is now part of what will be conferenced between the House and the Senate on the National Defense Authorization legislation, which will get finished before Christmas. This is interesting because it does have some rather good elements in it for that benefit local governments. And we just completed, it hasn't been sent out, but we just completed an analysis of the bill, which I believe Kyriakis will probably get to Ms. Rivera later today or tomorrow. Tax extenders always come up. The one there that's always important for local governments that have transit systems is the alternative fuel tax, which refunds money to local governments for the fuel that they use in their alternatively fueled transit equipment. The final one that I mentioned is the Water Resources Development Act. This is a bill that they try to do every 2 years for the Corps of Engineers. And the program, the authorization really authorizes studies that the Corps does, which is their first step to authorizing a project, and then project authorizations where they commit the total amount of federal funding that goes to projects that the Corps and a local non-federal sponsor have developed. The next point that I would make is, I want to say one more thing about the Water Resources Development Act. this bill came up in conversations which we had with the Utilities Department in September. Because the state of New Mexico has a statewide authorization under this program. It's called Rural Western Water. There are 6 other states that are covered by this authorization. And what is traditionally happened with the New Mexico congressional delegation is Senator Lujan and Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez usually earmark funds from this rural Western water account strictly for projects in New Mexico. They call out the specific name of a project. Senator Heinrich, who's a member of the Appropriations Committee, doesn't pick projects, but he authorizes a generic amount, if you will. It could be anywhere between $3 and $10 million. And then the Albuquerque District of the Corps of Engineers determines which projects in New Mexico to fund. We'll talk about that in a little more later in this presentation. The other list, and I think if we've moved to the earmarks, is these are the earmarks that are currently in FY26 bills. And we would expect, as you can see, that these, because they're in there, and what we've said is we believe that Congress will finish an FY26 bill. You can expect the funding for these programs. I do not have a determination about this second to last one, the Consumer Home Energy Navigator. I know that's been asked for before, but I don't know if it will be in the Department of Energy bill. Energy and Water Development is the subcommittee. Don't know if it'll be in there yet. We haven't seen that. What we did with the city manager and the city clerk in August was to meet with department heads virtually and talk about earmarks, grants, projects, or issues that were high on their list. We also talked about the possibility of funding some of these earmarks in terms of very specific bills. And it's my understanding that, and then in September, Kyriakis and I met with the mayor and council members to talk further about what their specific interests were or are in grant funding or earmarks. What came out of some of those discussions, and I believe the city manager and the city clerk had a discussion about the lists that were put together from those conversations with departments and the elected officials. And some of the highlight ones that came out were the 7 that you have here on the possible FY27 earmarks: an airport hangar, Peachtree, South Fork, Moreno Arroyo, Brannigan Library, Railroad Museum, sewer connections, and well 66. These are not final by any means. This was just a discussion about what the possibilities are. So there is further discussions to be had with you, the council and mayor, about the projects that were identified. And I'd say at this point, we're now in mid-November, almost mid-November. We understand from the congressional delegation staff first that they certainly expected to have FY27 earmarks. And we had that discussion with them a couple of weeks ago while we were still in the shutdown, because people were asking us, do you really think they're going to do FY27 appropriations earmarks? And so what we've been told informally is that that will happen. The other part of our discussion, as I mentioned, was about possibilities for grants. And you can see the expansion of the wastewater facility at the Innovation Industrial Park, Fire Engines, Young Park, East Loman, and flood mitigation. So a word about more about the earmarks is that when you look, just for example, at the ones that were on the previous page, the 7 of them, you wind up looking at about 3 or 4 of them that would probably have to be funded out of what we call the Transportation and HUD appropriations bill. There are 2 on there, the South Fork Moreno Arroyo and Well 66, that might either come out of Energy and Water Development or the Interior and Environment Subcommittee. So I said this is the right time for us to be having this conversation, because what we need to do is look at the list of projects that seem like they would be most important to the city, most important for competitive grant or competitive earmarking. And then we have to look at how many of them come from the same subcommittee or the same federal account, because this is more of a relevant issue for Congressman Vasquez, because he only gets 15 requests. The senators can make a number of requests, although they've started to put limits on them last year. So we have a lot of work to do yet in terms of a project's readiness for an earmark or for grants to be constructed, the accounts that are being used, the amount of funding. So those are things we'll be talking with the city staff about over the next month and a half, because the appropriations process will open, the FY27 will open up probably near the end of January, and we'll have to have projects ready to go for submission in, I would say, starting in mid-February and going through probably the end of March. The Senate usually, our 2 senators usually have later deadlines. I think, yes, I kind of talked about the next steps already. That's the following slide. So with that, I'll ask Kyriakis, is there anything that I've missed? And then we'd be glad to take questions from the mayor and council.
I don't think so, John. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, John and Kyriakis. So we're on to our next steps slide. We're almost done. So first today, we want to hear from you. Tell us what your council priorities are. Do they align with ours? We'd like to get them in a order. So if you could tell us what you're feeling today, that'd be great. Next, we'll have adoption of a resolution in December so that I can then turn that over to Cynthia, who can then enter those projects into the ICIP portal. And then, of course, advocating when the session starts, so in January and February. And so before I open it up for discussion, I just wanted to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to Larry, John, Kyriakis, Cynthia, Gabby, and Natalie. Your guidance and support in helping me understand the legislative process has been invaluable. I truly appreciate your patience and willingness to answer all of my questions, no matter how silly they were. And so with that, I'll open it up to discussion and let you know that the departments are here to answer questions in more detail on their projects.
All right, thank you, Christine, and everybody involved, thank you. Councilor McClure.
I'm sorry, I didn't think I was kicking it off, but I was going to say, specifically on South Fork Moreno, I'm going to advocate for that. And just to clarify a little bit how I wandered into this, is that you have a constituent that reached out and said, we have our road flood all the time off of Hatfield. What can you do? And I was like, well, that seems relatively straightforward. It was not. And so a lot of it is that we don't own the utilities under it. We don't own all the land, specifically all the right-of-ways. Mm-hmm. So it became this whole conversation about drainage. Super unsexy, can't sell that. So what was encouraging is to talk to some of the federal lobbyists to say, there are all these other options. So a lot of the things that I learned out of this process was, boy, it doesn't seem like we can do some of these larger things, but when we look at it in a sort of holistic way of what that drainage looks like, that might be a priority. I'm always going to advocate for the library. Love the library. Let's do the thing. It has been kind of historically put to the side because that's easy to do. But I'd like to look at that as well. And I would also say the East Mesa Recreation Center. If we were focused on our kiddos, And as I am taking my kiddos up there to play soccer, this is a really hard one to kind of put on the wayside, because I have grandparents coming up to me, recognizing me, awkward, and saying, I would like to have handicap parking, but that's phase 2. So I'd like to look at how we can do that more meaningfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Councilor Matisse.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for the presentation and the work that you've done to bring the priorities to the surface. I think my number one priority, because that's basically what I campaigned on, is public safety. And then number two, I'd like to see the septic tanks. I like to see removal of the septic tanks in the city of Las Cruces, just because of the environmental advantages and protecting our water systems. And then thirdly, of course, the library. Carol Bray and I go back 300 years, and so I'd like to support the library. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Flores.
Well, she looks a lot younger than you do, so it's okay that you said that.
Ms. Flores, I'm going to miss you.
Oh, I'm sure you will. So thank you so much for the presentation. There's a lot here. In terms of my district, soon to be the district of John Munoz.
You still live there.
Oh, my God. No, I'm moving.
Oh.
But, well, eventually I'm moving. I'm really interested in my district, and it makes me very happy to see that it wasn't overlooked, because sometimes it is, because people think, oh, District 6, it's new, everything there is perfect and wonderful. Well, in a world, in some kind of a world, it is perfect, and it's always wonderful. But I would just really like to see the development or whatever improvements for the East Mesa Recreation Complex. It is used a lot, and it makes me really happy to see so many families out there. And, you know, when I see all these people and kids, especially youth, having a wonderful time, I think, geez, you know, it was worth the wait. And I didn't believe it till I saw it, because it took, you know, some of these things seem to take forever. But then when they get done, it's like, wow. And then as far as Young Park goes, it's, you know, a legacy park. And it's unfortunate that we have some situations there that are less than, you know, whatever, less than nice. But we really need to keep an eye on that. And then the Rural Western Water Project, can you tell me what that is and why it's only in New Mexico? Or is this
Mayor, Councilor Flores, are you talking about the policy item from the league, or are you talking about the septic?
I'm talking about
the Corps of
the,
Engineers.
I think it's about the Corps of Engineers.
I'll let John
yeah, so John,
Okay.
answer that
can
for
you
you.
elaborate on that?
Okay. Yes, so this goes to something that was just mentioned a moment ago, the drainage on the Moreno Arroyo. So when we were there, what we mentioned was that is the title of a section of federal legislation, Rural Western Water, which authorizes spending. I think the total amount of authorized spending now is in excess of $535 million. But you have to, a local non-federal sponsor like the city would have to talk with the Corps of Engineers about, we have a project. We would like to fund it under that authority from that Water Resources Development Act of 2014. And our project will do drainage improvements or stormwater management, wastewater. So it's an authority. You can call it a program, but if you were talking to a lot of federal officials, they would not say that it's a program. It's an authorization in law, which you can draw down against that money, that over 500 million that I talked about. You can draw down on that in appropriations. You have to have a project. It has to be something that fits within the eligibility criteria. and you deal with the Corps of Engineers district in Albuquerque to get it funded.
Okay, and is all of that in process at this point, or?
Counselor, we would help the city pursue a project with the Corps if one is identified, and we could work on that to be a project in the FY27 appropriations bill. What the city would have to do as a step towards that, and we've mentioned this to city staff, is you have to get in touch with the Albuquerque district, Corps district, and tell them that you're interested in the program, and we have to submit a letter of intent about the project, which we can help with.
Oh, okay.
And this is the right time to be doing such a thing.
And so that LOI would be, you'd be leading us through the process on that, or?
Yes, we can help with that.
And how
Yes.
soon do we have to start that process, or is it in process now?
It's not in process now, and it should start as soon as we can identify a project.
How soon will it take? No. No, it's just that it's wonderful to have all these things going, because we have stuff that is still, this is my 8th year on the city council, and there are things that are still in the making. And it seems like time just goes by so fast, and I just feel like, the sooner we start on things, the sooner they will materialize. So thank you very much, and thank you, City Clerk.
You're welcome.
Rivera. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Corinne?
Thank you. Thank you for preparing all of this, all of you that have contributed to it. I know it's a lot, and I know, and to John and Kyriakis as well, and I know that this involves a lot of conversations with a lot of people who have wildly disparate ideas about what we should be doing. So thank you for having those conversations and sifting it into some kind of thing. And thanks to John and Kyriakis to giving those inputs that the city gave to some of those transit funding things. I think that's really important that we also keep track of where our voice matters, or where we have an opportunity to give input to federal policy as well. So thank you both for helping on those fronts. I think I echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. I think we have a lot of success and support for affordable housing initiatives in the city, and I think that our legislators really see the investment and return on that investment happening all the time. So I think for me, that's always going to be a priority. And I think our library, we are on a wave of support and readiness to modernize and beautify our library. So I'm with my colleagues and hoping that we can include that in every place where we can to cobble together more than enough funding, I hope. The other things that I think I've heard a lot about, the fire station improvements, I think that I really don't want us to overlook that. I know it doesn't sound, it sounds boring, but also it is directly related to safety and health of folks there. And I hope that we can find, again, a number of places where we can help in funding that. And I think those are the things that I really hope we can include as priorities. But I look forward to, I will go to work for whatever you all tell me to as it comes for lobbying or writing things or contributing to whatever conversations that need to happen. So I appreciate this process. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone, for the presentation today. My question is mostly for staff, I think. Sonia, maybe you first. I'm just curious about like strategy this year, right? Obviously, we have the new GRT. I do feel like, well, no, I'll stop there because my other strategies are a little bit more of a bummer. The reason they're a little bit more of a bummer. But for the new GRT, how are we thinking about approaching some of these projects? Are we just saying like as much as possible for some of them? Or I guess I just want to try to like maximize the amount of funds to actually get projects completed and not little by little. So I'm curious if you all have had conversations about that.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, Mayor Pro Tem, Sonia Delgado, Assistant City Manager. With regard to the GRT, as you know, we have a lot of different pots of funding becoming available to us. And so currently we're trying to get our projects in line for the state because that deadline is coming up very quickly.
we have been discussing, we have a long list of projects. And so we want to get your take and want to see where you're sitting with regards to the state. And then we're going to continue to take one at a time. And I'll let Christine chime in just a moment, but that's what we were doing. We wanted to get the state done first and then make our way through. But yes, we still want to have those pots of money. We want you to keep thinking about them and then trying to figure out which is the best way to put them into play.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And, I think mostly because I'm like, okay, well, it was clear that the public was very supportive of the library when we did our GRT conversations. So to me, I'm like, that should be a priority as we move forward in that conversation. Does that mean then when we go to the legislature, that allows us an opportunity to then ask for the other very big projects, right? Because I do think about like Mesa Grande and the huge investment from the federal government. I believe that $50 million is necessary, right? Like it's some sort of match. And if we want it to, it's such an important project and it would be like such a big loss if we couldn't get that for me, that feels like an important priority. And so I guess that's just sort of what I'm trying to get at, right? In terms of like how we're prioritizing some things. So just maybe some food for thought for everybody. And then my next question, again, in terms of strategy, Larry, maybe this is for you. I am curious about, I guess, as we approach this, should we be thinking about, like, what are the legislators thinking in terms of, like, the budget concerns, the federal restrictions? Like, are we in the same playing field that we have been in previous years regarding capital outlay asks? Like, should we be considering anything?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Larry Horan, lobbyist for the City of Las Cruces. Mayor Pro Tem, no, I think that landscape is changing. So this year, they're anticipating $450 million in new money. So it's still growth. But I'll talk about Medicaid specifically. We're seeing a trend over the starting in July, after the continuing resolution was passed at the federal level, increased utilization of Medicaid, increased acuity, meaning more sick people are getting treatment. And then as we see the folks who are going to drop off based on federal changes, we're going to leave the sicker people on Medicaid, so the acuity is going to get worse. Yeah. It's not a New Mexico trend, it's a national trend. And we're seeing that. And so that $450 million pretty quickly gets eaten up. We still do have a significant amount of non-recurring revenue coming in. The challenge now becomes is how do they use non-recurring and try not to put it in recurring programs like Medicaid? So we will see less available for projects. We don't know. The last few years, it's been $2.5 million for a House member in capital outlay and just over $4 million for a senator. We don't know yet. It's too early to tell how much they're going to have available. And again, they haven't bonded, so the bonding capacity is how they'll determine what's available for capital. So we do need to start thinking about it in terms of our requests, but there's also additional pots of money. We saw it last year when we were working on affordable housing. Yes. Particularly with Chairman Small and his real focus on affordable housing, we got some general fund money available for housing. And so it's not just capital outlay. We should look at those other projects. There's the other thing the Municipal League is looking at is Water Trust Board funding. Christine talked a little bit about it. Big water projects now, some members of the legislature are trying to funnel all of those projects into the Water Trust Board allocation and not use traditional capital outlay. That's an effort that's underway. I don't think it's probably going to work because I've heard at least one legislator, as soon as the idea was floated, shot it down pretty quickly because they want to be able to fund their water projects. So that's a long way to say there's other pots of money available that we can tap into. And so what we've done pretty well in the past is we've tried to hit every one of those priorities. And then again, with Governor Lujan Grisham in her last term, for the past few years, we've been successful tapping into her capital outlay pot, which is bigger. And so I think we would continue those advocacy efforts because that's why we've seen a pretty significant jump in what we've gotten in capital outlay.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I also had the governor's fund on here because I think, especially this last legislative session, we were tremendously successful. And I do think it's because we took that strategy. And, we had affordable housing projects on our capital outlay, and we ended up getting $11 million from a totally different pot of fund, right? So if we like, how are we leveraging, you know, other opportunities more strategically so that we can get as many of our projects, because they're all important, right? Like, we could sit here and rate them 1 to 10, but at the end of the day, they really all are important. And so I hope that that's the takeaway for staff as we move forward, and especially in conversations with like Chairman Small, in terms of like, do we think more affordable housing money will be available to us, especially because we're going to spend the heck out of that $11 million, right, Natalie? And they're going to say, oh, we trust Las Cruces to be good stewards of that money, and so we're going to give them more. And that's, you know, what we should be advocating for. So those were like my big strategy questions. And I think I had a similar one with our federal lobbyists in terms of like, you know, what do we expect? Obviously, the federal landscape has also changed, and I think we should just try to go after money that we know will get funded. And then I just have one specific question regarding the Real-Time Crime Center. Lieutenant, sorry to put you on the spot. Chief Story was like, I'm not going to be here today, I guess. This is my very first time hearing about the additional $3 million request on the Real-Time Crime Center. I think we've been very committed to that and have funded that. I'm just curious about like how this came about. We recently had a tour and I didn't hear anything about additional funding, so I'm just curious about if you're able to answer. If not, that's okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, Lieutenant Joshua Savage here. I am unfamiliar with the $3 million request, but more than happy to let Chief Story know and have him get back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to see if Public Works could come up. I know that they've been working on the project. Kyle, do you have any additional information? They've been working on it with PD related to the fact that it also connects with the traffic system. So I'll defer to Kyle.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. For the record, Kyle Arndt, your interim Public Works Director. What I can tell you about the new ask for the Real-Time Crime Center is that the first batch of money created the center itself and some of the cameras, but the infrastructure to get everything community together was dependent upon a kind of an antiquated system for our traffic signals. So it all needs to be reinforced quite a bit in order to get all the communication back and forth to the center itself.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Well, that was news to me. I guess, I do feel like if we wanted to fully function, then I guess that is an important investment for us to make. We don't want to do it halfway. You thought, didn't you? You did. And then I guess my last plug would be for our wastewater system. I think anytime whether I'm with our federal lobbyists or Larry or anybody, I do feel like I need to plug in utilities here because our wastewater system is old and it needs a lot of support. So that's sort of the one last specific thing I will add. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Curran.
Sorry, I have one other thing that is related to these handouts that you have. I don't know if now would be a time. This is sort of an added thing that I just want to not necessarily add to our official list, but just put on folks' radar that will come up in the state legislature. These are two items: the affordable spay and neuter money, which we just got $50,000. This went into place, I think, 4 years ago. This system of paying for spay and neuter. It's like an obscure tax on dog food, I think, and it's set to automatically repeal. So they're advocating for us to continue this, and this would be $50,000, like at least $50,000 that would be going into our ASCMV for spay and neuter. That I hope that we can add to something. If just so you know, if it comes up, it doesn't necessarily have to be on our call to pass, but just as radar of things that have an impact in our community that will be on the up for consideration. And then the other one is related to a program that I knew nothing about, so I'm really just here sort of to talk about this. That's also up for continuing funding, the CARE program, which provides support for people who are leaving domestic violence to not have to leave their pets. They've helped hundreds of people in Doña Ana County who are experiencing domestic violence to either shelter their pets or find a place, a temporary or permanent shelter for themselves and their pets. In either case, they have been doing this for a number of years, and they support community organizations in doing this. And so I just want to say it's also on folks' radar. So if you hear anyone talking about it, I hope we can think about these things too, because they're definitely concrete things that will be up for refunding in this session. And so I just want to put them on our radar. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, again, I just want to mention, thank you, John and Kyriakis, for being on. On the federal level, it's always looking for flood mitigation. You know, anytime we get a new building or anything new, we always talk about what about the maintenance, what about the repairs, and a lot of that happens with flood mitigations, with new developments and things that take place. So anything that we can do on that end would help our community, and also at the Innovation Industrial Park with water and waste treatment as well. Those are the things I would be looking for with the federal request. On the state, like we said, we have to have a strategy, and we also have to be realistic. What have we gotten in the past, and what are legislators looking for? And it's usually finishing things that have already been started. And you know, it's just so hard to turn away from a $60 million grant that we've received. It's huge, and it captures a lot of things. So many things as far as safety when we're looking at travel, and also the addition of housing that will occur, and economic development, maybe some industrial improvements in that area. So that Mesa Grande extension, for looking for that matching funds to be able to complete that. We already have 60 million. We don't want to turn that back. We want to make sure that we move forward, and it captures so many things, quality of life, economic development, everything else that we can do for our community. I think that's huge. I'm also an advocate for the library and want to push forward anything we can do to get for our library and get that going. The other thing is the police track. That is huge. That is huge. It's already far enough to travel almost all the way to Deming to train, and then that's going to go. Then the travel will be to Santa Fe, and then you can only train when it's available to the state for us to be there. And then the other thing is weather providing. So, you know, there's several months of the year we can just say we're not going to be able to train. And it's so important when we start looking at liability issues, when we start looking at accidents, when we look at how can we prevent some of those things. Training is a huge thing. So that police track to me is something that we really need to advocate for public safety. Those are the ones. Young Park, of course. You know, there's so many. We can go down the list, the quality of life and what we need for our youth, and making Las Cruces thrive, but I'll just stop at those and yeah, add Young Park.
Got it.
Okay, with that, was there any members of the public that wanted to say a few words? Yeah, come on. Start forming a line, come up, we'll give you a couple of minutes.
George Pearson. I was really happy to hear the words protected bike lane and the description of the Mesa Grande extension. Also want to make sure that you talk about protected intersections, because that's a key component. The new AASHTO standards for the bike lane design has some very good work on that. So we need to build a 21st century road there. There was promises of developer contribution to the match, so I want to make sure that that's still going to happen. On the surface transportation bill reauthorization, I'm glad to hear that the city is putting their words in. Recently, it's been said from the Republican leadership that there's going to be emphasis only on vehicle traffic. So that's going to be at the expense of transit and bicycle and pedestrian safety. So anything that we can do to retain bicycle and pedestrian as part of the surface transportation reauthorization is very important. The other thing I want to talk about is, as a neighborhood association, the Alameda Neighborhood Association, we have been advocating with our state senator and representative for the WIA building. The city's already identified $700,000 as the need, and so I would hope that that would be a part of your ask and that it is available. So we as the neighborhood association will still be asking for that, and so that it's on the ICIP so we could get that money successfully, hopefully. and anything that the city can do to help with that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, George, and I'll let you know that it is on the list so that we make sure it's on there. The WIA building.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Steve Chavira. I'm Executive Director at El Caldito Soup Kitchen. And I just want to thank you for listing the priorities today. But for the record, I just want to make two quick clarifications. And one is that the kitchens at the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope is actually a partnership between El Caldito and Casa Peregrinos and the city. We are an active participant in that process, and so I want to make sure that that's reflected on the record. And as we talk about the priorities and the justification for moving forward with that project, it was great to hear the statistic of the amount of poundage that Casa de Peregrinos put out, and they do a lot of great work. I also want to clarify that El Caldito Soup Kitchen, in the calendar year of 2024, we served 155,000 meals. And our capacity is only needs to get bigger and bigger. But for the record, I just wanted to make sure that that was part of the process. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Lorenzo Alba. I'm the director at Casa de Peregrinos. And I also want to echo what Steve said. I want to thank you for prioritizing our project. It is important, given these very difficult times, for a lot of families that are missing out on meals, that are definitely feeling the pinch when it comes to their budgets at home. This is a priority. Feeding people is definitely a priority. Getting the soup kitchen up and running and allowing them to be able to serve more during the day is going to be a priority for everybody in this community. The uptick is inevitable moving forward. Even if the government opens back up, guess what? The residual effects of what's happening right now is going to happen for a little while longer. The families are already coming in, and probably about 1,000 families more that we've seen at Casa Peregrinos a month. I don't know what Steve's seeing right now, but it's definitely having a major effect on the people that we serve. So this should be a priority. I think you should put us on your federal priorities too, because we can always take advantage of those dollars with the state's matching programs. So I think that's something that you should take into consideration. Christine, I should have mentioned that to you before, I'm sorry, in our planning. And I do want to thank Christine and her team for all the planning that they've done, because they've met with all of us. We've got to meet with your lobbyists, both the state and the federal lobbyists, and that helps us at least try to find out what's going on there and how we go about our ask. So we are actually planning also to get together with all your team so that we can prioritize how we hit up the state legislature this year. So our schedules will coincide with each other, and I'll see you guys in February for your big event. Thank you so much.
John, did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I should have mentioned this earlier because Mesa Grande has been mentioned several times, and I want to, Kyriakis and I want to thank the city staff for the fine work they did on that grant application, and we worked with them and the congressional delegation and our transportation associates in Washington to make sure that that project got its review over at headquarters, and I think that was awarded in January, but I wanted to for certain congratulate the city on the work that it did. That was the 5th largest grant they made in that program. So congratulations to you folks, and thanks for your work with us on that.
Thank you, John. See another? Thank you, Christine. Appreciate it. Larry, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Good to see you. And Cynthia, thank you. Next on the agenda is item 4.2, public input needed for Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan Overview for West Picacho and Motel Boulevard. And Selena.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors, and staff. Selena Morales, Deputy Director for Economic Development. As part of our ongoing redevelopment efforts, today we're excited to share the progress of our West Picacho and Motel Boulevard Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan. This corridor is a vital gateway into our community, and this plan represents months of collaboration between city staff, local stakeholders, and residents to help guide future investment, safety improvements, and overall revitalization in the area. We partner with Stantec, who will be leading this project with extensive community engagement and technical expertise. Presenting today is Rhonda Bell, the project manager with Stantec, who will walk us through the process, community input, and the priorities identified for moving this plan forward. With that, I'll turn it over to Rhonda.
Is that good? A little higher. Mayor and Council, good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Bell. I'm a urban planner with Stantec, and I wanted to introduce you to our team. Also here with us today is Colleen Ruiz, who is a PE, public engineer.
You'll need to speak more clearly into the mic, please.
How's that? Colleen, wave. The other folks on our team that you may have seen around town over the last year, perhaps if you came to any of the public engagement elements, are Jason Besky. He's also an urban designer, and Lorena Gonzalez, an urban planner. So as Selena said, Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, MRA, this is the boundary that was established in 2023 by City Council. It is roughly bounded. You can see it's not exactly a perfect rectangle, roughly bounded by Tashir on the north, Hadley on the south, Motel on the west, and then we have that nice straight boundary over there on the east for Railroad. As we started this process, however, it did come up that perhaps we could extend the boundary just a little bit, and that is—
I'm so sorry. Our system is not picking up your voice, so either speak a little louder or closer. Oh, you can also raise the podium. Will you raise the podium? Never mind, it's as far as it goes.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Just give me a flag if it doesn't work. I'm so sorry. So we've got the boundaries up here on the screen. The slightly higher image is the original boundaries as they were approved by council. The lower image is the suggested extension of the boundary along Picacho. And this is just the parcels that abut Picacho as far as the river. And the reason that it's suggested that those also be included is there's a number of uses that are fairly similar to the ones already in the MRA, particularly those older motel type uses that could also benefit from being in the MRA. And just a quick backup, the MRA is a state level designation administered by the city. So there are other communities in New Mexico, including Farmington and Albuquerque, who are also doing MRA plans. And what it really does is it opens up other funding opportunities for infrastructure, for private development, directed towards economic development and urban revitalization. So I know we'll be holding any questions until the end, but your opinion on whether or not that extension of the boundary of the MRA is acceptable is one of the elements we'd like to hear from you on today. As far as schedule, we've been working on this for about a year. We started in September of last year. And it followed a fairly typical planning process, existing conditions, recommendations, actions, and it did go out to the public throughout this entire process. We're here with a draft plan. We intend to be back here December 1st in about a month, hopefully for adoption. And one thing I do want to mention is that public engagement was woven throughout all of these orange boxes you see for the past year, including most recently the draft plan that was included in your packet that you just read was posted on the city's website for the required 30 days for public comment, and that closed on October 28th. As far as public engagement goes, we try to reach out as far as we can and get as many and as diverse opinions as we can. So we have consulted with city staff, with local business owners, local residents, and with the community at large. because even though we're talking about the MRA is part of larger Las Cruces. So we truly want to hear from everybody about what they want to see and what they think will be successful. Some of the things that we did with public engagement, we always try to not come up and just kind of talk at people. So we go for interactive public engagement. You see some of the photos of the different methodologies we've used here. The photo on the left there is the funding priority jars. So we had 8 jars with different possible priorities listed on them. And we asked folks, we gave them 4 tokens and asked them what to vote on, not unlike the conversation we were just having on your agenda. And let me flip through my notes. I will tell you the 8 topics and the 5 that came out as top. So the 5 top categories were supporting small business, improving property conditions, addressing safety and crime, beautifying streets and sidewalks, and addressing folks experiencing homelessness. The other 3 that were in there, and this does not mean they didn't get any votes, but they ranked lower, was enhancing public spaces, expanding cultural and entertainment options, and expanding housing options. We also did 2 community surveys with the general community as well as with business owners in the MRA, and we had a great response for the community survey. I've done a lot of these, and 700 is a really impressive response. We did ask a number of targeted questions, and to not drag you through all of them here, they are included in the appendix of the document that you have. But the most desired housing type was affordable housing. And the improvement that people wanted to see the most was related to safety. Not a specific improvement, but just improved safety generally. And then you can see the businesses that people most wanted to see come into the community. Some of them may be candidates for one of the Catalyst projects that we'll talk about later in this presentation. The business owner survey was significantly smaller. You can see again a top concern was safety, and they had slightly different top needs, although this is a point I want to address. Public engagement is not an exact science. We don't say this is absolutely the number 1 thing, the number 2 thing. What we see is that certain issues float to the top, so we can have an idea of generally what's important to the community and look to address those, not to put them in a specific order. So, taking that initial input, we came up with a vision, which is on the next slide, but also the purpose and the approach of the project. And I really want to address the approach, which is what we're looking to do. What we want to lay out in this plan is what the critical path is, which are the priorities, what order they have to happen in, and who's responsible for them. That's the champions part, and champions is a little bit of a weird term, but if no one is actually identified as being responsible, it probably won't get done. If everybody is responsible, same result. So in the very last chapter of this plan, there is an action matrix that lays out all of the recommendations and notes which city department is lead, not solely responsible, but who is the champion to keep pushing it forward. The plan also identifies potential funding sources. Again, tying back to the conversation we just had. So what you need to do, who will push it forward, and how to fund it. Those are the goals of the plan. The vision, as you can see here, talks about all of the strategies that are in the plan support this vision. And when you look at this vision and see that we talk about cultural heritage, community-driven, community pride, quality of life, the thing to call your attention to is that the vision of this plan is all people-focused. It's about the people that live there and work there and the greater community. So now we're going to move into the strategies and recommendations in the plan. There are 6 buckets of recommendations, if you will, but I do want to say they're not prioritized. So like number 1, 2, 3 are not more important than 4, 5, and 6. They're put in categories to help us think about them, but also to identify who that champion would be moving forward. So the first priority is safety and security, and we use both of those terms because we heard a lot of public input about not just do I feel safe walking down the street, but also about do I feel safe owning a business and are there break-ins? So it's about both personal safety as well as property. The first two strategies here are fairly self-explanatory: enhancing lighting to increase security, police presence and visibility. Those relate to some things that we just heard, as does the smart infrastructure. I want to point out that that is specifically supportive of the Real-Time Crime Center that you were just discussing. The third and fourth things listed on here, if you're not familiar, crime prevention through environmental design, or if you want to verbally abbreviate that, CEPTED, talks about things like creating sight lines from businesses and buildings to the outside so that people can see what's going on. It also talks about defining private space, public space, and the space in between, so it's very clear if somebody is in a space they shouldn't be. It also talks about creating longer hours of activity in an area, you know, instead of just regular business hours, having activity and people around that extend into the evening. And then finally, concentrating as well on maintenance to make sure the community looks cared for, that people are interested and have pride. Safety-related community programs, these can be things like neighborhood watch, business watches, and I know driving around Las Cruces, some of these already exist. It can also be things like slow zones around schools, or like learn to bike or bike safety classes. And I want to note on that, that is not transferring all of the responsibility, for example, to the cyclist. Most people are not solely cyclists or pedestrians. Most people are also drivers. So taking safety classes of that nature is just teaching everybody to look out and share space. The other thing I want to note about safety and security, because this is such a big issue, is that these are 4 very targeted strategies, but they're not the only thing for safety and security. If you do only these 4 things, it's not going to achieve safety and security in the MRA. Safety and security comes from everything that's in this plan, from new development, from more people in the area, all of those types of programs, extended activity, programs to help people find new housing, find new jobs. So supportive physical enhancements, supportive programs, supportive policy, it all goes together. It's not just these priorities. And I just wanted to be clear that nothing in this plan stands alone. The second bucket or category of recommendations we have is mobility. And it's mobility, it's about being able to move around within the MRA area, but also to connect from the MRA area to Las Cruces and even to the greater region. So we're talking about creating enhanced bike and pedestrian policies and infrastructure. That's 1 and 4 on this list, and maybe in the final plan we'll put those next to each other. Traffic calming and crosswalk improvements. And that's particularly important as we look to have new uses come into the area and redevelopment. Look at where people are wanting to go and what the distance is between those signals so that we don't create what I call a Frogger situation. Also continuing to monitor the traffic on our roadways for when it might be appropriate to have pedestrian activated crosswalks or even new signals. Expanding multimodal options. This isn't about getting rid of cars. This is about making sure that people have options for whatever they need that day, or particularly people who live in a single vehicle household. So that if today your distance is small and you want to bike, you feel safe biking. If transit works for you today, you feel safe and it's comfortable to wait at the transit stop. So this covers all of it, and it's not about getting rid of cars. Aligning West Picacho Avenue with city design standards. West Picacho is both a state and a federal roadway. So it is subject to those requirements, even though the city of Las Cruces currently has certain agreements in place with both of those bodies for both signalization, medians, and things along those lines. However, to improve what people are looking for, that feeling of safety, security, comfort, feeling like they belong as pedestrians or as cyclists, it is possible and recommended that we look to creating enhancements along Picacho, and this is things like creating more shade, more street trees, wider sidewalks that create both physical and psychological comfort. And we did meet with both Public Works and with NMDOT to talk about this and make sure that this was acceptable within the boundaries of that roadway classification, and that both of those were in favor of doing this. And then lastly, wayfinding systems, helping people find existing destinations as well as the ones that we hope are going to come in. And wayfinding systems are typically, I want to note, they should be calibrated to different modes. so that wayfinding for cyclists and pedestrians are different. They might show different distance, not different distances, but recognize the reach of walking and biking might be less than cars, but also just the way that they're designed, so they're easier to read at certain speeds. Third priority, economic and workforce development and really supporting the growth of local business. This is another thing that we did here quite strongly in public input. Marketing priority parcels. Those parcels might be priorities because of where they're located or because they're appropriate for a particular use that we want to see come into the MRA. Creating a land bank, that's something that actually Ms. Rivera just talked about. Land banks can be used because you want to temporarily retain a piece of property that you have a vision for it, but the market might not support that vision now. So you want to essentially not preclude that use in the future and wait until the market catches up. Alternately, you might use the land bank to collect parcels that you want to aggregate together to be more attractive for a private developer. Again, for a specific purpose or something that you want to see in the district. Storefront improvement programs. This can take both a permanent or a temporary kind of aspect. Permanent storefront improvement is more like facade improvements, helping people improve the appearance, the attractiveness of their business and their building. Temporary improvement programs are often things like looking for creative uses for temporarily vacant storefronts. So you might see, I have seen short-term museums, art exhibits, even small-scale police outposts, information. I've seen project offices in vacant storefronts so that you don't have that vacancy kind of staring you in the face, and it gives an idea of more vibrancy in the community. Also in this bucket, we're looking to cultivate entrepreneurs that can contribute to the MRA and locate in the MRA. This could be things like startup funds, mentorship from other businesses that really help them get started, things to think about. It can also be resources, making meeting rooms available or making on-call legal services available. A lot of times those are things that you might see in like an incubator, and you can decide what scale they might be needed on here in the MRA. I should also point out at this point that some of the recommendations we're talking about also showed up in the El Solano MRA that you just reviewed about 6 months ago. So we did review that plan to make sure that anything that was in there that kind of applies citywide was also reflected in this plan. We don't want them to exist in silos. And then also workforce training. So bringing workforce training into the MRA, it could be really specific, like a commercial kitchen and culinary programs or training for specific trades. It can be more general, helping people improve their computer skills or even assistance with filling out employment applications. It can also take the form of matching people with apprenticeship or internship opportunities. All of those contribute, as I said, to kind of raising the whole level of the MRA and the safety and security. The fourth bucket is housing, and we're going to talk when we talk about some of one of the catalytic projects that's coming up next in converting some of those older motels to housing, and that could be permanent housing, it could be affordable housing, transitional housing, it can take a lot of forms. Creating a housing and a resource guide for developers, that would be primarily creating a digital resource. It can be a print resource as well that notes the available sites, available funding, and also very importantly, proactive outreach to those potential developers. So they might be developers that are already working in Las Cruces or in the state, or they might be national developers that might be interested in starting to work here. Promoting housing stability. We're the first thing we're looking at here is to avoid eviction, so that's direct rental aid. It can also take the form of rehabilitation grants for owner occupants. This is a program that you already have, so it could be expansion of that program. And then also looking at things like the right to return. So as the MRA redevelops, it is possible that some residents may be displaced as that property is redeveloped. The right to return is about making sure that they have the first right of refusal to come back. It also, some cities take that one step further, And they have coordinators that work directly with the people who are displaced, both to help them find new housing, to know where they've gone, and when that new project, hopefully a mixed-use development with additional residential in it, is ready, to contact them and make sure that they are the first to potentially look at it and decide if they want to come back. So that's a more proactive instead of a passive approach to the right to return. And then offering incentives for multifamily and affordable housing. You've done a lot with that so far. I don't think I need to dig into that super deeply. The last two priorities, beautification and community culture, are linked. Developing a street beautification plan. This can be about things like greater shade, greater amenities, like seating. The city could do a pilot block to demonstrate that, or instead of actually building the pilot block, it would be important to decide what that cross-section is on key corridors, definitely West Picacho, potentially Motel and Valley as well. Defining the cross-section in advance means that as redevelopment or as new proposals come in, that can be included as part of the requirement for approval. Because it's very expensive. It's very difficult to say that we're going to just, rebuild a quarter mile or a half mile of West Picacho. But saying we have this cross-section ready, and as things redevelop, this is what we want it to look like. That's a more phased, incremental approach. District gateways might be a part of that, as well as public art. Temporary uses on vacant parcels. This is something that, like filling in those vacant storefronts, also gives an idea of care and activity in the community. Some of the uses that we've seen, they might be really temporary, like we're just rolling into Christmas market season. You could have a 1-month Christmas market on a vacant parcel. We have seen food trucks come in on vacant parcels, maybe every Tuesday. That's where you go to get your food truck lunch. Other uses like skate parks, and that doesn't mean that you have to cast them into the ground in concrete. They're more built temporarily, usually with wood and what have you. If any of you are familiar with Parking Day, which is a national movement where you convert like 1 or 2 on-street parking spaces to a temporary park, it's that kind of creativity that could go into temporarily converting vacant lots. Community gardens is another use that I've seen on vacant parcels as a temporary, and they can be temporary a month, temporary midterm, a couple years. And then the last bucket of recommendations, all about cultural identity. We talked about public art in the last one. This is really promoting that public art reflect a local voice, local heritage, integrating storytelling and oral history. This could be a physical improvement, or it could be a non-physical improvement. It could be something like a recorded walking tour of the area, or you've probably seen local history or poetry on plaques or included in paving. We did include historic assets as part of the recommendations here, since the railroad depot is close, but not actually within the boundaries of the MRA. But looking at rehabilitating and enhancing that could bring that cultural identity and pull it into the MRA. The next part we have to talk about is catalytic sites. So the city chose 3 catalytic sites to do concept level site planning on, and each of these was chosen for different reasons. They are distributed throughout the MRA. The Tashiro multi-use hub is kind of north there, the one labeled 1. It is 42 acres, and it was chosen because it's the biggest single undeveloped parcel in the MRA. So it has a lot of potential to really influence what happens in the MRA and even jumpstart other development. Comunas Park, labeled number 2, is on the west side of Valley Drive. It's an existing city park. It is owned by the city. The goal of choosing this as one of the catalytic sites was to look at how it could be enhanced and maybe promote more local neighborhood use and respond to current recreational trends and the way the community want to use the park. The last catalytic site, the Blues Apartments, it is an old motel. It has already been converted to apartments. And so we were working with the landowner to look at how it could be taken even further, and it was chosen to act as a template for other motels that may convert in the future. To go through those sites specifically, as I said, Toshiro is 42 acres. It's on the southwest corner of Toshiro and Valley Drive, and it is privately owned. And we met with the property owner several times to understand his vision and intention on the property. And one of the most important things to him is flexibility. Acknowledging that this is a very large site, projects like this are often built in phases. And so that's why this is a very high-level blob diagram, if you will, as opposed to specific footprints, to leave the flexibility to respond to the market. What he did want to see is commercial and retail, and that is the bigger red blobs, that are against Toshiro and Valley because they offer the best visibility for those types of businesses. There's also a smaller red area on the upper left, that would be the northwest portion of the site. That's intended to be an entertainment district. So that's fast casual food, possibly food trucks, a community plaza. That's placed there to respond to the Field of Dreams that is just west of the site. The idea being that folks who are there with their families for the morning, for the afternoon, for the whole day, this is a chance to offer amenity and capitalize on that so that there's something in walking distance they can go over and grab a bite to eat while they're still over there for sports tournaments. There's also housing. The balance of the site is housing, and that is a good transition to the existing neighborhood to the south. And the specific type of residential, how dense it is, single family, multifamily, that is something that'll be market driven at the time that it develops. The second catalytic site, Comunas Park. This is 2.6 acres. As I said, it is on Valley Drive, and it is actually just south of the Toshiro parcel. This is an existing park. It has some informal parking over on the west side, just in the dirt against 8th Street. And then there is a basketball court, a small play area, and one picnic table with some shade over it. So the objective here was to respond to what the community wants in the park and increase the usage. So you can see that we've formalized the parking, made it a little bit bigger and hard surfaced. Soccer was a really popular request of what could go in the park. There's a basketball court as well as 2 age differentiated playgrounds. There was also a desire to make space for programming in this park. So that's why you see the plaza shade structure and then more plaza area around that water feature, so that the park can have both active and programmed uses as well as be used just passively and casually for families that want to go out and have a picnic or what have you. Finally, the last catalytic sites, as I said, is the Blues Apartments. They are on the southeast corner of the intersection of West Picacho and 17th Street. So this is an existing motel that's been turned into apartments. It is the all of the orange buildings that you see in the left image plus the red one, those are all residential units. And you see that there are 2 different images here. One aligns with what the property owner is currently looking to do, and we did meet with his property owner. It is privately owned. At the present time, he is looking to make some structural enhancements and some aesthetic enhancements to the existing hotel or existing apartments. The other thing that we added is a common open space there, as well as we've formalized the parking. Right now, the entire area is kind of a gravel dirt lot. So by formalizing the parking, we can create those green areas, side note, that can be communal spaces. And I realize that these would not be the lush green that we're showing. It would be more desert landscaping, but in terms of differentiating what's shown in the graphic, they're shown as green. The second image that you see then is a possible future phase 2 of enhancing the apartments, which is everything you saw in phase 1 plus adding a building facing 17th Street. So that's a 2-story building with apartments, and then the parking grew a little bit, and the size of that building is conceptually created, of course, on parking, about how many vehicles can be parked for that. The last part of the plan that you have, Chapter 7, it has an action matrix, which, as I said before, designates each of the strategies along with the lead parties and the resources required and the phasing. And then there's also a funding matrix. And the funding matrix is specifically divided in the same 6 strategy categories that we have before, so that we're identifying for the safety and security recommendations. There are, for instance, 10 different funding sources that we identified that the city may be interested in pursuing. For housing, we identified 6. We looked at state, federal, and private sources, and the 4 questions that we asked to determine whether or not they might be suitable and should go on the matrix for this plan is, if the project and the funding opportunity have the same objectives. Basically, would your project be as competitive as possible? Does it merit the time it would take you to write it? The second question is, can the project meet the readiness requirements? Some funding sources are suitable to take something from concept to actual planning. Some are just, let's talk about concepts, and others are looking specifically for shovel-ready projects. So that was the second question. Are the project and funding program timelines aligned? Important third question. And in the matrix that you see in the last chapter, each of the matrices, I believe, takes up 2 pages. So you see a description of the funding program, the contact information, the website, the funding cycle, so that you know applications are due in September, for instance. And you have all the information, and in the live version of it, it's actually linked and clickable for you. And then the last question is, does the amount that the funding provides, so if the maximum amount is $5,000, does that justify both the time to apply for it as well as the time to administrate it? So $5,000, maybe or maybe not. $250,000 grant, that would be more attractive. I think that brings us to the end. So I'm going to hand it back to Selena.
Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate it. Selena Morales, Economic Development. So quickly, I just want to go over the timeline recap of what's next. We are coming December 4th to bring the plan to adoption. With any comments or concerns or recommendations you have, we'll have enough time to be able to implement those in the final plan. We have met with our internal MRA committee once already, and we'll be meeting again in January. We are currently researching funds and programming. That's going to be an ongoing thing when it comes to both MRAs and all MRAs in the future. And then we will be bringing a resolution, hopefully in January, based on the data collected by Tax and Rev and the baseline. If there isn't enough data to make that recommendation, then we'll have to wait another 6 months. So typically it's a year, but we're going to check in January for that. As far as the implementation and moving forward, we're really going to focus on coordination with the internal MRA committee. This is made up of department directors and key staff that will help us prioritize projects, identify funding opportunities, and align efforts with those departments. So our goal is to address those concerns proactively, making sure redevelopment enhances the quality of life for existing residents and supports the growth of this area. We're excited about what this plan represents, and we'll stand for any questions or discussion.
Thank you, Selena. Anyone have any questions? Councilor Coran.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the insight. I am excited about transforming the West Picacho corridor. I support the extension out to the river, as alluded to. I did have one sort of feedback point is I feel like the Catalyst projects seem not exactly on like as transformative as I imagined, and I realize I'm asking, like, I know that all these things cost money and they all have things related to them, but I think I was thinking about, like, when you were talking about the section of the road, right? That to me is like a transformative idea, and the Catalyst projects feel like they're kind of not even approaching that kind of transformation. So for me, that feels like a little bit like, oh, I wish we could do more, or think of a way to dramatically do that. And then the question that I really have related to that is, I think it took years of work to get one pedestrian safety measure on Picacho, in part because of the fact that 4 years, right? That it's not exactly ours, right?
Correct.
And so I'm wondering if you could sort of give an assessment of the capacity for us to actually do the kinds of transformative things that I'm imagining. Like, is there a conflict here? And I would like to hear a little bit more about that conflict and understand it so that I can frame my expectations of what is possible and what really isn't necessarily possible. And I think you were kind of talking about this, but I would love to hear more.
Okay.
If you're up for it.
Yeah, definitely. So I know, speaking to what Rhonda said, thank you, Mayor and Councilor Caron. Speaking to what Rhonda said, we did meet with Public Works and NMDOT. I don't know if you want to give more information on those meetings as far as what led to the recommendation, or Kyle, as far as it being not our roads, and also the level of staff capacity and the amount that would be required if we took over. That was an option that they provided, that we can take over that street, but the cost to do that and the amount of money that it would take for the maintenance and taking it over completely just didn't seem feasible at the time. Not to say that we can't ever do it in the future, but just being realistic about that specific question, it seemed it was really hard to make it a catalytic project. Not to mention, these three are not the only catalytic projects that we're thinking of. Of course, we have about 7 or 8 that are in mind, but as we've stated with MRA projects, it takes 1 or 2 just to get the ball money, to get interest going in the area. And so these were the ones that we felt were very doable. We're aligned with other comments that we've gotten from the public and community feedback, and is really what the community asked for. Although they may not seem as grand as you were hoping, it is a really small area to work with in comparison to El Paseo South Solano. So that was some of the deciding factor with these catalytic projects.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you all so much. As I always express, I'm just so excited about the potential for MRAs. Obviously fought really hard for West Picacho to be one of our top priorities. As I always say, I think what happens on West Picacho impacts the rest of the city. So I'm very, very excited about what you've presented here today. Thank you very much for the work that you all have done. I think having this MRA committee has been really excellent in how things are moving forward. So again, thank you. I do want to say that the Catalyst Project #1 on Tashiro, I've been part of those meetings with that owner and that developer, and this is really exciting. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, what's been most exciting is the communication between the city and the owner and the developer, and their willingness to accept feedback and their willingness to say, this is our vision, how can you support us? And one of the things that has very clearly come out of this is that they are like full force, full on the pedal moving forward with some of the projects they want to do. Very like multi-use, all kinds of types of housing, commercial, that's going to be really exciting for the school. All the activities that take place here during, after school and weekends, and for Legends West neighborhood and for the McClure-Hoagland neighborhood. It's going to be very exciting, and I think one of the barriers that we have discovered through our conversation is that there are some kind of expensive barriers that have to get crossed that I really hope the MRA can be supportive with, but perhaps other funding sources, so that, if this is a catalyst, much like we've talked about, like, the Boys and Girls Club being a catalyst for El Paseo, I think this can be that for West Picacho. And I really do hope that we try to find every possible solution to support them in investing in this part of town, because I do think it's important to reward those that want to stay here, #1, who they don't want to leave this area, but also who want to come. And so I'm just very, very excited. I hadn't seen the workup of Camuñas Park, and so this is really beautiful. And right now, this is a really sad park, honestly. And so this rendition is really beautiful and aspirational. So I'm very excited about that. I think that's it for me. Just in terms of the conversation with NMDOT, I know you've heard this all before. Like that median really between Second and Valley has hindered a lot of economic support for the businesses along that corridor. And I think for us, if we can continue to advocate for the state to think about that differently, is really important. Like it is one of the number one things I hear from business owners in that area. And so I really think we need to continue to push them to just think about what that medium does for that community. Other than that, I do want to thank you especially for the kind of community engagement that you've done with businesses and just general users and people who live in the area. And I can't wait to vote on the project. I also think the expansion is very important. So I do think that I hope we see that in the December resolution to approve the expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilor Matisse.
No, again, thank you for your hard work on this project. I'd like to just give support to the extension to the river. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We're good with the extension? Everybody's good with that? Yeah, I agree. So, no, thank you. It's as Mayor Pro Tem said, it's very exciting for an area of Las Cruces that's been long overdue, needing an uplift, and so looking forward to it. And with that, I'll ask if there's any members of the public that want to share any comments or have anything to say.
May I share a comment?
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry,
I just
Councilor
jumped.
Flores.
Thank you.
You okay. I'm going to miss you too.
Oh. Yeah, this is, you know, I snuck up on you. I've lived in different cities. I mean, it's not like, oh, I lived in this part of the world or that part of the world. But I have lived in San Francisco, grew up in Los Angeles, got my BA in Sacramento, California. And, you know, traveled in Canada, Mexico, South America, Europe, and all that. But I have to say that when I came to Las Cruces, I fell in love with it. It's kind of like the way I feel about Paris, but there's no comparison. There's just something so wonderful. Don't laugh. There's just something so wonderful about the people here, and I want to thank you for the presentation, and I think you have really captured, in the diagrams that we saw and the future and your work. I mean, just the entire, the entire team, and it's just so beautiful. And it does take a while. Sacramento, it took like about 10 years for it to, really get everything going. And we're not in the best economy to boot. And, governmental, how should I say, environment, at least nationwide, isn't very friendly right now to the human being. So I just really want to thank you for capturing the beauty of the city, and for the design is absolutely beautiful. And I just want to express my thank you, my gratitude.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Were there any members of the public? Yes, come on up. We'll give you a couple minutes.
Joan Woodward. I have to have this high. Can you hear me all right? All right. Mayor and council and consultants, thank you for the opportunity to comment. I fully support this plan, and I'm glad the city prioritized its preparation. I've been involved with other earlier visioning processes with the city, and one effort that always comes forward is to identify gateways to Las Cruces. And in several of the other planning efforts, we looked at a natural west gateway as being at the river. The bridge is dramatic. It appears in surfer movies. It is an asset for the community. And it was always around La Llorona Park that it was determined to be the gateway to Las Cruces. And so I clearly support the extension and also would just like to bring up that since it's a park along the river and that connects the Rio Grande Trail and is perhaps eligible for funding and support from the National Park Service Rivers and Trails Conservation Assistance Program and the state's Outdoor Recreation Trails Plus grant, I just am curious why the gateway, which was, I think, number 1 in the plan, was placed at what I consider to be a very hazardous intersection at Roadrunner. And why is that the west gateway instead of the bridge in the river park? And I would have liked to have seen traffic and accident analysis in the plan. I did see demographics, I saw income, but I did not see that. So that's my first question. Should I hold on to that and go to the second? Yes, I will. The second one is, as I understand it, Picacho under this plan would remain a principal arterial, which allows truck traffic through the area that hopefully will become calmed by the features that will be implemented on Picacho with more intersections and more friendliness to I see you've extended my time, thank you, to the pedestrian. I support and I want all of these improvements that you propose, but I notice in suggesting that Picacho be transferred from DOT and federal highways to the city, I wonder what will become of that truck traffic. Will that increase pressure on other east-west arterials, or will that trigger something that I would not like to see, which has been on the MPO plan for many years, which is a bypass from Engler Miles to the 10. And so that's a larger scale question I have as an implication of this very good plan, and I would just be interested in knowing more about changes, especially with regards to truck traffic. I believe it's approved for transporting hazardous material as a principal arterial. I'm not sure about that, though. And to see what other pressure might be in our future on other east-west arterials. I love the motel conversions. I love the invocation of SEPTED, and I love that if you've ever tried to drive west on Picacho at 5 p.m., that so many of these will, of the improvements will overcome the glare issue, which is so dangerous in both directions during the day. So I think this rigorous plan is very highly appreciated, and I thank you for prioritizing that. If we could address those two questions, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Selena, do you have any information on that first one that she asked about the gateway?
If I may, I'll stand in for Selena. The location of the gateway, I believe we were looking at more of the land use concept of when you feel like you've arrived because there's more of a concentration of built structures. I will say this is a draft plan. We are not opposed, and we are looking for input like that says, you know, we really think it should be at the river for all the reasons that were listed. If you'd like, I can also respond to the second question regarding the truck traffic.
Yes, go ahead.
So when we talked to NMDOT and Public Works altogether, actually, the question was on the table, should the city take over control of West Picacho so that they can control the public realm and create more of the experience we're looking for? What came out of those meetings is the sole single thing that would necessarily change if the city took possession is that they could prohibit truck traffic. On the other hand, the cost of taking over the roadway would be very high. And so my apologies if we are unclear on the plan. We can update it to be clear. We are not recommending that the city of Las Cruces take control of West Picacho for the cost implications. And so to answer the question, it will remain until some point at the future, if, the context would change and the city would decide they want to take control, it would remain a state and a federal roadway, and truck traffic would remain on it. So I think directly answering the question, no, it wouldn't trigger a bypass because the intention is that truck traffic remains.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Matisse. Come on up. Go ahead, Councilor Matisse.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it would be interesting from Public Works and other departments to give us an idea of the future east-west corridors that are going to be built in the city of Las Cruces. I'd be interested in knowing that. I think that's really important for the traffic control, particularly the Telshore and other streets that are getting pretty crowded. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Go ahead. Good to see you, Jason.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Silva. I have lived and or worked in the area for 30 plus years. I went to both Boccaccio and Mayfield and care about the area greatly. I agree that the area has been neglected for far too long. And that investment is needed as well. I like a lot of what the Boccaccio MRA is trying to do. Blues apartments do need help. They do need to be brought into code. Communis Park needs to look like the pictures that they showed. It needs to be safe and fun. I agree with bringing housing and businesses here as well. Two things that I had. I also hoped that there would be more down Boccaccio. I hope that there would be that would be the main focus. I went to all of the meetings that the MRA planners put on. They had asked us for our thoughts and ideas. Ideas such as better lighting, or walking paths, new types of businesses, different places to eat, doctors, offices. Things to do at night were all amongst the mentioned ideas. This all would be great. Most people did mention crime as a big concern, as Rhonda had stated. Some people even said they would like it to resemble the downtown area. That was like their idea of how to transform it. And I think that all would be awesome. Number 2 is safety, safety, safety. I know everyone is excited about that big plot of land. It is a big plot of land. You can do a lot of things. I hope that we are putting safety in mind when looking at what would be allowed here. We have Mayfield with about 1,500 kids plus staff, and Boccaccio Middle School with about 600 to 700 kids plus staff. Plus, we have the Field of Dreams and Sports Complex with soccer and baseball fields. Many people who live or work or travel in this area often know how bad it gets. The big example I have is Trunk or Treat. It was horrible, down to Shiro. A lot of the events at the soccer fields, it makes everything plugged up. I know that we almost ran over 2 kids just sprinting across the street. Adding more homes will only add to this, and that's to be expected, and that's fine. But the businesses that we place there, I think we have to be very thoughtful and careful. I know that the owner had said that he had wanted to, do something big, and that's totally fine. I think the area, a lot of people would be happy. Is this the right place? I don't think so. Maybe down Picacho, I think that would be great. But so any commercial business that is allowed here, I hope will have a small footprint and will be more of a low traffic type. Just one small bit more. Just examples, if you look at the other 3 high schools in town that they don't have a middle school very close by. They don't have high traffic, big stores very close to them. Las Cruces High, you have an Albertsons, give or take about a mile away. Lorgan Mountain, no. Centennial, you go down about a mile and then you have a grocery store. So we all know how high school kids drive, and I hope that this would be all put into place in what kind of businesses that we have. The question to planners that I have is, when you guys were going through that website, how many people had mentioned safety as something very important? Having things that were low traffic compared to high traffic. I'm pretty sure you got a few of those. So I hope that these are questions that City Council would ask and hope to get before they make a vote. Sorry for grandstanding. I do appreciate the extra time. And I hope you all have a very nice afternoon.
Yeah, if you have any response to that.
I can respond generally to Jason's last question about what we heard on the survey. We had about 30 people respond to the survey. Not everybody answered. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you mean the survey that was done in the community at the beginning, or if more recently the draft public plan that went up. We heard quite a lot on the survey, the community survey about safety at the beginning of the project. A lot of people did mention Picacho specifically. I'm going into my memory banks. That's an older one that I read. I don't recall specific comments from the community survey done last year on Tashiro. I can say that on the most recent comments on the draft that was available last month, we asked 6 questions. We asked for comments on each of those 6 categories that we went through, and then we asked for comments on if there were any comments on each of the 3 catalytic projects. I would have to go back. We may have had 1 or 2 comments about Toshiro, the property, but they don't stand out in my mind that it was, a wave of comment from communities about that one. I do recall talking to somebody at one of the public meetings who lived in the community directly south of there. Their comment was not so much about safety. They were concerned about the drainage coming off the site. We can certainly, if you would like, in the interim, I'm sorry, I don't know your exact city process, we can supply those comments, or we can look through them again and tell you if there were specific ones about Toshiro Drive or any other specific concern that you have.
Okay, thank you. As Jason mentioned, it is a valid concern when you have the gathering at Field of Dreams or the soccer fields and things, and the congestion and the traffic that take place. So just making sure that we do have the safety in the area, that'll be vital, especially on Toshiro. But yeah, all aspects, we have to look at that.
It's a really great point, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. We had noted specifically on Picacho that traffic levels and volumes should continue to be monitored, and I mentioned that relative to pedestrian-activated crossings or future signalization, and I would say we should expand that recommendation to specifically note Toshiro in that as well, because it's a really good point. I mean, this is a major planning tenet that as new uses come in, traffic is going to go up. Toshiro is well designed now, but I can certainly see as traffic increases, it might need more of those items.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna add, I do feel like Toshiro in the parking situation when there are big events, like we really have to coordinate better with the schools around like the Gus Macker was kind of a disaster when it came to parking, to be honest. And so I think that's a very valid concern. I also think there being a neighborhood there, I do think it will help, but I do think it's important that we ask that we bring in LCPS for better coordinating on how some of these events happen. There is a giant parking lot on the other side, and there is another giant empty lot on the other side of that. So there is opportunity for us to do something better with some of that parking. And then just lastly, as Jason was speaking, can you go back to I think where we had some of the business response and what they wanted, their priorities? I guess I would like to maybe make a pitch for, like, on West Picacho specifically, the infrastructure of a lot of buildings, though privately owned, I think is it's struggling. And I do feel like for a lot of folks, they just don't have that kind of capital, right? Like they're small business owners, or perhaps not. Perhaps they're out-of-state landlords, and we're currently working on something like this already, right? That, like, to hopefully address some of those issues. And honestly, the MacArthur neighborhood is in the MRA, and so I'm excited for, like, the conversion of a couple of these things, right? Like the neglected properties ordinance that's coming up. But I do hope that, as we start thinking about what the funding may look like, that we consider a pot of money for folks who want to improve their storefronts, especially along and prioritizing along West Picacho, given that they are part of the, like, what you see first. So I just wanted to add that last piece. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll move on to the next agenda item, 4.3, an update on the plastic bag fee. Jenny.
I'm gonna push yes. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Mayor, councilors, Jenny Hernandez, Sustainability Officer with the Sustainability Office. Good to see you all again. Happy to be here. So today we're going to discuss a couple of things with you. The first being that at the end of this year, so in a month, we will have wrapped up 4 years of the plastic bag ordinance, which is a long time. It came by quickly, and so we wanted to give you an update about how many of the fees we've collected, not only in the past year, but in the past 4 years, and some of the trajectories that we're seeing and things of that nature. And then the second thing is, which we'll go into detail, there are certain limitations to how we can use this fee. So today we're going to give you a preview of what will come back in December to propose to change the wording in the ordinance to allow us some more flexibility with how we're using the fees. I brought a special guest with me today, Molly Carrier, who will help me present on the numbers and figures. She is our sustainability co-op who leads on some of this. And so she'll do a portion of the presentation, and then I will do a portion as well. So to kick it off, a little bit of background context, just to refresh our memory. We passed the plastic bag ordinance in August 16 of 2021, and it was essentially limiting the use of plastic single-use carry-out bags. So no plastic bags in retail spaces to be given out when things were purchased. The way the ordinance is written is that if you go to a store and you want to purchase a plastic bag, there will be paper bags, and they charge you 10 cents, 5 cents of which comes back to the city, and then 5 cents which the retailer keeps. And as I mentioned, the 5 cents that we collect can only be used for very specific things. So the way the ordinance was written, it says the fees collected are dedicating to promoting sustainability, public education, and purchasing of reusable bags. And so that's a little bit background context. I'm going to pass it over to Molly, who will give us some concrete figures for you all to look at for the past 4 years and then the past year, and then we'll continue from there.
Mayor, councilors, my name is Molly Carrier, and I am a sustainability co-op with the Sustainability Office here at the City of Las Cruces. Today I will be covering a breakdown of the data from the plastic bag ban report for 2025, as well as accumulation of data since the program started back in January of 2022. Year 4 of the plastic bag ban started in January of 2025 and will end in December of 2025. With environmental service fees for quarter 4 being due for businesses by January 15, 2026. With that being said, we have up until quarter 3's worth of data for this year. Total yearly projection is set to be roughly $174,000, with the data for the over $128,000 that we currently have accumulated so far being displayed. In this slide, I have detailed the year 4 breakdown of procurement by each sector, which are grocery, retail, clothing, and hardware. Grocery was the highest grossing area with over 72% of fees originating from this sector, while retail was the second highest at 25%. Clothing and hardware were our lowest contributors at 3% and less than 1%, respectively. The graph on the right reflects the aforementioned totals. Now that we've covered the year 4 breakdown by sector, I will touch upon the averages of data since the program started in January of 2022. The average for each quarter over the almost 4 years of implementation is a little over $45,500, which can equate to roughly $180,000 a year. As you can see by the graph on the right, it depicts the total procured per year. This year is projected to be our lowest procuring year since the program started at roughly $174,000. Along with total revenue procured per year, a little over 917,000 paper bags are purchased by consumers each quarter, which can equate to roughly 3.6 million bags a year. For the graph on the right, this year is also projected to be our most statistically significant decrease at negative 7.46%. Year 1, there was no percentage change due to it being the start of the program, but year 2 compared to year 1 also showed a decrease of 5.48%. Year 3, there was a slight increase compared to year 2 at 4.9%. However, the reason we're seeing such a significant decrease currently is the launch of the educational campaign that was successful in relaying that the ban is still in effect. Along with this, new stores are arriving to Las Cruces, yet we are still seeing a decline in paper bag purchases, which also means that the ordinance has been effective in being relayed to stores. Now that we have discussed the data, I will pass it back to Jenny to discuss how we've used the fees procured from the environmental service fee to help educate the community.
Council, Mayor, Jenny Hernandez, Sustainability Officer. So as Molly mentioned, we've seen a decrease in the overall usage of people purchasing paper bags. So what we've used this funds for, as a reminder, it's very specific to what we can use it for. These are the ways that we've used it in the past 4 years. So the first year was to help us with an educational campaign. So the first year to let businesses know that there's this new ordinance, here is how you get registered to submit your fees, and just educational awareness to the public. Then we did a second educational campaign, like Molly mentioned. We saw a spike, I think it was in year 3. And so we thought, okay, well, we should probably do another educational campaign to remind folks that this is still in effect and it still exists. And hopefully people will remember to bring their reusable bag. And so on the next slide, I'm going to show you, because they did an amazing job on this second campaign, some of the promotional commercials that I hope you all saw around there, and hopefully will reinvigorate you remembering our plastic bag that became basically our helper. Let's see if I can. Oh, maybe not. Sorry, folks. We tested it out before and it worked. Okay, that's okay. We'll come back to it.
Oh, here comes Adrian.
Oh, thank you, Adrian.
Not sure what happened there.
When Las Cruces went plastic-free, things looked great for usable bags like me. It was gonna be beautiful. But then, you forgot about me. And now you're wasting your money on those things. Paper bags. Next time you go to the store, don't forget about me. Here we are again. You're back from the store while I sat here all alone. Every time you leave for the store, you also leave me behind and waste your money on all those paper bags. So here I am, right where you left me, waiting and hoping that maybe next time you go to the store, you don't forget about me.
This ad was paid for by paper bags. No reusable bags were harmed in the making of this advertisement.
Why do they keep forgetting about me?
This ad was paid for by paper bags. No reusable bags were harmed in the making of this advertisement.
Hey, buddy. You might be wondering how I got here, alone in the backyard. Everything was wonderful at first.
Isn't this great? Now we don't have to waste any more money on paper bags.
But then, they forgot about me. And now they're still wasting their money on those things. So here I am, hoping that one day they don't forget about me. Right, boy?
As the sustainability officer, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I deeply related to some of those scenarios where you're at the checkout and you're having a moment of panic because now you wish you have 8 arms instead of paying 10 cents. And so that gives you an idea of the campaign efforts that we did to help remind the public about, just don't forget about bringing your reusable bag. And then on the right, you'll see we had a costume made of our bag person who we partnered with Cruces Creatives to design the costume with us, and so that we could take it out in public and pass out some of the reusable bags to folks. So that gives you a sense of how we've used the bag funds so far. The second thing that we've done is use them to purchase reusable bags. We've handed out more than 6,000 reusable bags through this effort to, again, either help especially low to moderate income folks to have reusable bags to take to the store so they won't have to purchase any, and just to the public so that they can have some ready and handy for when they go to the grocery stores. The other ways that we've used this is temp services. When we first launched the ordinance and campaign, we did not have any awesome co-ops yet, and so we used temp services to help us, one, go out to business and do educational promotion, but two, to then get businesses to register online to the portal to submit their payment and all of those fun details that they had to fill out. And then now you saw that Molly presented on all those numbers, so she actually tracks, sends out reminders to the businesses on the quarterly reports and things of that nature, and so it partially funds some of Molly's salary to help cover her hours that she works related to the plastic bag fee. And then last but not least, educational events. We've actually partnered with a couple of community-based organizations here in Las Cruces to do educational events on, one, remembering to use your bags, but then going a little bit deeper in terms of why we're really trying to push for this and kind of the microplastics and the connections to plastic waste. So, as I mentioned, we will come back in December for a first read to request us changing the language. Like I said, it is very specific to how it can be used right now. And so to give you an idea of the past 4 years, we have collected about $100,000 of plastic bag fees. We have spent to date, based on the slideshow I presented on the previous slide, about $337,243 of the fee. We have not spent $363,000 and some change of the fee just because of how restricted it is of what we can and cannot use it for. And so when we come in December, we will propose language, something similar to the above, that basically says it allows us to use it towards anything that helps us meet our goals in our climate action plan. And so, for example, including but not limited to climate mitigation and adaptation, energy conservation, public education, and community engagement. And so essentially that means that the fees would be used to helping with any of our projects that help us meet the climate action goals that were adopted by Council. And so why am I here today asking you to consider making those changes? And you'll see the detailed revised versions of the ordinance when we come back for a first read in December. And if you all recall, we have a program called Plugged In for Good. And due to the new federal administration, we have lost a lot of our grant funding. And so we have had to make a lot of pivots and shifts, which means we've had to align or realign what our office can provide and do in terms of capacity and services. And so it's really meant that we put a lot of effort in our Plugged In for Good project to help cover the holes, so to speak, of the funds that we've lost. And now we have some other projects that we would like to continue to do and provide services to the community for, but we simply don't have the fundings, and this could really help cover the gap. And as a reminder, Plugged In for Good is our low-income retrofit program that we're aiming to help people, specifically in the infill area, have safer and healthier homes. And so to just give you an example of what I mean by it is limiting our services that we can provide is we like to partner, and I'll give you a good example on the next slide, with a lot of our community-based organizations, Cruces Creatives being one of them. And there was a grant opportunity to partner with them to submit a grant together, but we decided not to move forward just because we had to pivot a couple of things. And another one is our EV funds. I was here a couple weeks ago on the funds that we received from the animal shelter. And so there are additional opportunities like that coming forward that we're really having to strategize if we can move forward with them or not. And so how we're proposing to use the additional $363,000 that are in reserves currently. So with our Plugged In for Good project, it's only very limited to low-income community members right now. We are proposing, we hope to expand that to everybody in the city who needs help having a healthier and safer home, that we can help them. And so based on that, we have to find different funding alternatives, right? We've learned a lot from the community that sometimes traditional loans don't work for people, especially right now with high interest rate. So we want to find different innovative financing mechanisms that we can help close the gap for residents to be able to do retrofits in their home. So we'd like to use some of this funding to do an analysis to figure out what those best methods are. The next one is our Fix-It Fairs. Hopefully, this is not the first time you have heard about our Fix-It Fairs. Last year, we provided, I think, 3 or 4 Fix-It Fairs across the infill area. We did one with Weed and Seed. That was a partnership that we did. And essentially, the Fix-It Fairs are where residents can bring things that they love that potentially just need a little bit of TLC. And then they can keep continuing it versus buying the thing completely new. So a perfect example is if you have a really great favorite coat that you love, but there's a button missing or, there's a hole in it, you could bring it to one of the Fix-It Fairs and they could help you sew it so that you can continue to love your favorite coat and actually use it. And so the Fix-It Fair, they also provide, it's a partnership with Velo as well, so you can get your bike tuned up. They also do electrical work and woodwork. And so we had a lot of people bring in lamps, their old lamps that they had, and they were able to fix them. We also had a lot of folks bring in sharpening. So they need a knife sharpening or garden tools that needed to be sharpened, and you can bring those in, and at the Fix-It Fair, they'll help you sharpen those items. And so this was a fan favorite. We heard from a lot of our community members that they hoped that we could continue to do this. This was actually some funding from a grant that we had previously that we have lost since. And so this would allow us to continue providing those Fix-It Fairs to our community that they really loved and enjoyed. Another way that we would propose to use the funds is for future energy audits. So last time, a couple weeks ago, I was also here to accept our SEED grant funding. And part of that is energy audits. So we have funds to do some of the houses now, but we don't have funds to do more houses essentially in the future. And so this funding source can really help us pay for some of the energy audits done in folks' homes. And that helps us to understand if the home is a good fit to do retrofit work in. And last but not least, you saw Molly present, and our co-ops in general are essential to the success of our program. We've been very lucky in that we've had really sharp and brilliant co-ops who can actually take on projects and lead them themselves. Perfect example is our car share program that is about to launch on the 18th, where you can rent an EV and ride it around town, was actually started by one of our previous co-ops. And so that gives you a sense of like we can do a lot more when we have co-op support. And so some of these funding we're proposing to help pay for the portion of their salaries to make sure that we can keep our co-ops and have successful programs. And so last but not least, when we come back in December for a red line version of the changes that we're proposing, because we're changing the ordinance, we're going to also propose that we revisit it after a year of changing it so that we can give you an update and tell you how it goes, and then from then on there to revisit it every 3 years. A big thank you to Codes and Community Development, because they have been working with us to streamline the process of just some of the things that weren't quite as successful in the original ordinance that we can really vamp up to help with the processes of the bag fee. And then we've been looking at best practices from other cities. 4 years is a long time, so many other cities have also adopted something similar. And we're just seeing the best practices and learning from them and seeing if we can borrow and steal any of those and add them to the ordinance for any revisions that we're going to make to keep those included when we come back in December to visit you all. And then last but not least, I want to give an example. A big shout out to Melissa and her team at Utilities. We did some reusable bags that were Halloween themed this year. And to the comms team, Jocelyn turned this around really quickly and it came out amazing. And those are the reusable bags. So that's an idea of some of the reusable bags that we give out. They're cotton tote bags so that hopefully all of your groceries fit in there, or those quick stops that you make. And so big shout out to them. We handed some out to some of the staff, and I asked them to take pictures specifically so we could share it with you all. So thanks to all the utility folks. If this is one of you, congratulations, you are now famous. But I'll stand for any questions or comments that you may have that Molly and I can answer.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Any comments, Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jen, for your presentation and keeping tabs on this. I was just wondering, is there any, how should I say, is there any way that you would be able to work with the school district in terms of, the educational aspect and, having children take bags home? It could be maybe smaller bags, because I carry one in my trunk, so I never forget my bag. And if I do, all I have to do is put the groceries into my trunk, the trunk of my car. But just in terms of, because it's so important for children, and I know that the school, a lot of the teachers in their classrooms do raise that awareness about recycling and, all that sort of stuff. But in terms of institutionalizing this with an existing organization such as the school district, is there any possibility of doing that? Or I don't know if there might be legal issues or anything like that, but has it been explored?
Mayor, Councilor Flores, great question and great tip on leaving your bags in your trunk. So we have a really great relationship with our community schools that we work with frequently, actually, on our Plugged In for Good efforts. We haven't specifically done anything with plastic bags, and they were recipients of several rounds of our reusable bags to hand out at schools. But that's a great idea. That is, I think, something that we can definitely have our co-ops help lead on for the educational purposes. But I think that's a really great idea, and since there's an existing relationship with the community schools, we can definitely look into it.
Yeah, Councilor Graham and I serve on that board. I've served on that board since even before its inception. But it seems like that'd be a good way to bring it home, literally and figuratively, to the children in the community. But thank you so much for your work, and thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Matisse.
I just have a question, and I know it's probably can't be rectified, but when you go into a grocery store, and you go to the produce department and you get the apples and you use a lot of plastic bags. I mean, you know, you have 42 plastic bags and then you get one paper bag. And you put all those plastic bags maybe in your carryout bag. Have you addressed any of that with the grocery stores, with the plastic bags and the produce and all?
Mayor, Councilor Matisse, great observation. So it depends on which grocery store. We actually reached out to Natural Grocers. I don't know if you all recall, they have like a green bag. I think Sprouts does too.
Yeah, that's Sprouts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sprouts and Natural Grocers, and so those are biodegradable and not made of plastic bags. And so we were curious. We wanted to go down a rabbit hole and see how much. Is it more expensive? Is it cheaper? So that we could propose the similar thing to all grocery stores.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up, that might be another proposed usage, is some education that you could actually use the money to go into the bigger chain stores and say, could you use the biodegradable? And then another proposed use is sometimes you have a lot of the paper bags and biodegradable or the plastic bags on our streets. Maybe we could allocate some funding for mano a mano, you know, because they do a great job cleaning up all the paper bags and plastic bags in our city. So that would be another suggestion if we could maybe allocate another 100,000 toward mano a mano. Just a suggestion from District 2 Councilor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks so much. I just want to say I support this. I think it's smart to think about how else to use the, limited funding, but nonetheless, I think you have some really good options, and I support that. I wanted to ask, 4 years ago or whenever we adopted this, there was a concession made around restaurants and their ability to continue using plastic bags. I'm curious if you've revisited any conversations with any restaurants about this. If you haven't, perhaps that could be the next step, because I think that at this point, those are the only businesses that use the plastic bags.
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, it has been harder with the restaurants.
Jenny, the microphone's a little bit far from you. Yes, thank you.
It has been a little bit harder with restaurants just because, I don't know if you all have had this experience, when food spills in the paper bag, it is a mess, and so plastic holds up a little bit better. We can revisit it though, because it's been a long time since we initially had that discussion, and so that is a great suggestion that we can revisit it.
Councilor McClure.
Just real quick, and to vouch, the Halloween bags were pretty top tier. My daughter was super jealous that it was mine only. But I was going to ask the energy audits. Do you work with utilities on that, or is that just because I like the idea that you have multiple education opportunities, and that's definitely one of them too.
Mayor, Councilor McClure, we do not work with utilities specifically currently for the energy audits that we're doing now, but if the fee gets amended, it is definitely something we can explore with utilities. Right now, our partnership is with, or previously has been with the community college. Sorry, we have a close community partner who has similar acronyms, and so we've been working with Dona Ana Community College to help us with the energy audits that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you. Were there any members of the public that wanted to share anything? Come on up.
Mayor, Council, Juan Garcia. Before I start, I'd like to congratulate Councilor Curran for her re-election. I wish you the best over the next 4 years. I'm glad to hear, excuse me, I'm glad to hear the Malpractice Act and the medical compacts are back on stage and hopefully will be resolved. There's no excuse for this critical issue to still not be resolved. Hope the next council will support. One ordinance that I personally dislike is the ban of single-use plastic bags. We still have plastic bags for bread, vegetables, fruit, and other items, but let's make things difficult for the population and impose a usage tax for the use of paper bags. So instead of plastic bags on the roads, we now see an increase in trash, needles, feces, and other garbage around the city. But you scored some good political points with Las Cruces having the distinction of being the only city in New Mexico imposing this additional tax. On the other hand, the good point about this ordinance is every time I go to Fiesta Foods to get my groceries and I forget my environmentally correct grocery bag, I think of our council. So, thank you. And we're going to miss you, Councilor Flores.
All right, thank you all. I think that was it. So motion to adjourn?
So moved by Flores.
Second.
This is on the motion to adjourn the work session. Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes.
Councilor Graham is absent. Councilor McClure? Or Councilor Graham?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Who? It's so late. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Sorry. Councilor Ben Como is absent, and Mayor.
Yes.